Hello, welcome to Conway Video. In this video, I wanted to talk about doing one thing at a time and how that matters a lot, and how I think it matters enough that it's almost sometimes worth just ignoring a whole bunch of things just so you can focus on one thing, and how that can actually really unlock a lot of potential that you might not realize at first. So let's get into it. I want to talk about the idea of doing one thing at a time. And I guess the reason I think this matters is that for all of our technology and sophistication and everything we've been able to do as human beings, it's amazing how limited our minds actually are in one particular way. And I think that way is focus. We all, or most of us, have a limited focus. We can only focus on a few things at once. Generally, I find that we are most effective focusing on one thing at a time. There are some people who seem to be able to multitask, but I've said this in previous videos and I'll say it again. I think that that's really more to do with switching. I don't think the human mind can really run on multiple threads very easily. I suppose there are neuroscientists who might want to argue with me about that, and I would have to defer to them, but my experience anyway is that generally I can only focus on one thing at a time, especially when I'm at work and there's a difficult problem, a challenging, non-trivial problem that I need to solve. I find that I can only focus on one thing at a time in order to get to the end of that problem. If I'm able to do lots of different things, or if it looks like I'm doing lots of different things at once, that's usually because I'm able to switch very quickly. So I'm able to do one thing and then switch and then do another thing and then switch and then do another thing. But I would say doing one thing at a time is really important. And this can be challenging in the modern work environment. You'll find that there are lots of different kinds of information coming at you at once in many workplaces. You might have HR sending you an email about company policies, and then you might have someone on Slack sending you information about the engineering policies at this company, and then you've got some other message coming in on Slack about how the company is doing and competitor analysis, and then you've got an email coming in about your payroll from the finance department, and then you've got like a bunch of requirements coming in from one team, and then your project manager is sending you other requirements, and you've got so many things coming at you. It's impossible to deal with all these things at once. So what do? What I tend to do is I find one thing that seems to be the most important. And here's the thing, it doesn't really matter if it's not the most important thing. And I will tell you why in a moment, but I'll pick the thing that kind of on face value at the most surface level seems to be pretty important. Usually I have a rule about this, which is I will go and focus most intently on the thing that my report is telling me to focus on. That's the person I report to, the boss, the manager, the person who decides whether I have the job or not, that person. And that's an important thing and a whole topic in itself, how you identify who that person is. But most of the time, a company is pretty clear with you. They'll call that person the line manager, or they'll just call it your manager, or your team lead, or whoever, whatever title. The company will usually, anytime you begin a job, they will tell you and be fairly clear with you about who you report to. But sometimes you have to do a little bit digging to find out who that person really is. And it's sometimes a little bit more complicated than you might think. But that aside, so you find out who the person is, right? Who's the person that I report to in this job? The next thing is try to listen carefully to what this person is saying. If they're a bit quiet, maybe I go and talk to them or send them an email or a message on Slack or whatever message app we use. Or maybe they come to me. Often they take the initiative, come to me and tell me what they expect of me. So I try and open that line of communication and then keep that as frequent as possible, and really try to get as much of their time as I can. Listen to them, learn from them, get a very, very clear idea of what they want in both the kind of the bigger picture and the smaller picture. And then I'll try and just pick one thing that they want. And it could be something small or it could be something big. Whatever it is, I'll just pick one thing that seems to be pretty important and I'll just get stuck into that. Now, does it matter so much if it's not actually the most important thing? I don't think so, and here's why. Once I get started working on that thing and really exploring it and understanding it and getting to know what it is, I will pretty quickly pick up on whether that thing is essential or not. And so even if I'm wrong, even if I make a mistake, I'm pretty quickly going to learn whether I made a mistake. And maybe I'll get as far as actually delivering some work on that thing and showing it, and then they say, oh, we didn't really want you to focus on that. That was only a small thing. What we really wanted you to do was this. And I'll be like, okay, cool, well, I'll just do this other thing that you said you really wanted. So then I switch and I'll do it. And so it's okay if I make a bit of a mistake. Usually people are pretty forgiving with that, especially if you've only just joined the company or you've only just started a new project within the company or whatever it is. And so most of the time you can make a little mistake, and it's better to make that mistake quickly and make it small and get it over with than to make a much bigger mistake, which is getting basically paralyzed, getting kind of stuck and not making any progress on anything because you're trying to do everything at once. So the problem with trying to kind of boil the ocean, so to speak, I've heard that phrase used sometimes, boiling the ocean, or trying to do everything at once, basically, is you just end up in a frazzle, end up in a mess a lot of the time, because you're trying to do so many different things that you can't focus, you can't settle down, and so you end up getting none of them done. And another problem is, even if you do get a few of them done, you don't get them done with very much quality, because you're so distracted by each one competing for your attention that you end up only giving a little slice of your attention to each one. And then another problem also is you don't really know which ones of those are important or not. And maybe all of them are unimportant, and then you've just wasted a whole lot of time doing a whole bunch of things that aren't really that important. So I think it's actually better, instead of trying to get everything right the first time and cover all your bases and do all the tasks and all the things at once, it's better to just pick one thing that seems to be the most important and absolutely zero in on that, um, like a sniper gun or like a jet plane or whatever analogy you want to use. Just drill down and focusing on that one thing and make sure you nail it. And once you've done with it, two things can happen. Either the boss says, that's great, give me more of that, and then that's good, you've nailed it, and you know something now. Or they might say, oh, that's not what we wanted. But because you focused and you got that thing done quickly and immediately, then you're going to be able to tell them, okay, so what do you want me to do? What should I have done? And then you're going to learn, right? And they're going to tell you, oh, we actually want this. And then you learn not only this is what they want, but you also learn, well, this is the kind of thing they want. This is the kind of area they want me to be working in. And you're going to learn that much quicker if you fail quickly and fail fast and just deliver the wrong thing, but make it a small thing that you did wrong, rather than if you try and do lots of different things at once and end up taking an immense amount of time, and then it takes way longer for them to realize that you're doing the wrong thing, and it takes way longer to get feedback. And so I guess one of the big benefits of working in this way is getting feedback early and quickly. You want to get feedback as soon as possible from the person who you report to, and also from everyone else you have to work with. And so often the best way to get that feedback quickly is to just find one small thing and focus and zero in on that thing and just do that. And maybe it takes a whole day, maybe it takes 2 or 3 days, whatever amount of time it takes. You just do that one thing, you can focus on it, you can deliver it, you can get feedback on it, and you're running, you're rolling, you're moving forward. And then if the feedback is positive, then you've got positive reinforcement, to keep doing those sorts of jobs, and then you can move on to the next one. If the feedback is negative, well, okay, fine. You can take it as a learning. You can find out from the kind of negative feedback you got. You can find out what it was about your work that was wrong. Maybe you chose the wrong thing to focus on, so then you can learn what the right thing is. Maybe you focused on the right thing, you just didn't quite build it in the right way. So now you learn, okay, what the right ways are to build it. What do you want? How do you want me to build it? And this learning is so important because organizations are different. Everyone's a bit different. Every company's a bit different. The sort of things that are considered quality in one environment, in one context, are different from the sort of things that are considered quality in another. Some companies, it's all about the UX. Some companies, it's all about speed. Some companies, we don't care so much about the speed, but we want the code to be really well designed. And this is what we mean by well designed. This is the kinds of things we want to see in your code that tell us, oh, this is well written code. You're only going to learn that by, executing, focusing on one thing, delivering that thing, and then being able to get feedback, constructive feedback, and then improve it in that one thing. Your mind has to have one thing at the end of the day to focus on. So I guess we come back to the beginning of this video, which is that, the human mind is limited, it's finite. For most of us, when we're really intensely solving a difficult, complicated thing, we have to take it one step at a time. We have to do one thing at a time, even if we're doing the wrong thing, even if it's the wrong thing and it ends up being the wrong thing to do, we still have to at least do it so that we can do something, so we can move one step forward and then find out why it was wrong and then do it the right way. We can't know everything at once. We can't focus on everything at once. We can't do everything at once unless we're super master geniuses. But most of the time, even a genius is going to struggle in a very, very complicated environment with a lot of moving pieces if they don't focus on one thing first and just understand that one thing and then move on. So that's my little spiel about doing one thing at a time. Thanks for watching.